Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and a 30-day free trial. Go to audibletrial.com/Rushmore. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. Greetings and welcome to the Mount Rushmore podcast. My name is Jeff, and I'm joined, as always, by my good friends Richard.
Hello.
And Michael.
Howdy.
Richard and Michael spend their waking hours locked in mortal dialogue combat about the top four things of any given topic. And this week is no different when they discuss the Mount Rushmore of athletes appearing in sketches on Saturday Night Live. Who chose it?
This would be mine.
Why?
No. I chose it, I think, because I'm fascinated whenever athletes, or really anyone who's not an actor, comes on Saturday Night Live as a host.
Yeah.
But particularly athletes, because even with musicians, there's still there's a performance aspect to what they do. Mm-hmm. Versus athletes who are generally completely out of their element.
Yeah.
When asked to do like a comedy, improv-ish sort of show. And it's such you can have sometimes you find people who are secretly really great at it, and sometimes they're complete disasters.
Yes.
Versus whenever you have a professional actor who comes on, more or less they're going to be competent with the performance. And you kind of know what you're going to get, and sometimes people are funnier than you would think, or maybe not as funny. But the spectrum's pretty low.
They seem to fall into a few categories of either they're typecast playing an athlete in whatever sport they're in.
Right.
Or they put them in a dress.
Frequently.
Or in some version of drag. Or they make them try to do some sort of impression of another athlete or friend of theirs.
Right.
And
we'll frequently have teammates come on to shout at them during the monologue from the audience. That's another good trope.
And every once in a while they're just in a very traditional SNL sketch.
Yeah.
And you're just okay.
Yeah. Something where
that's Deion Sanders.
Yeah. Working the drive-thru, or where Deion Sanders is working the drive-thru, or something
right,
where they're recognized as themselves in the thing. Mm-hmm. One thing I think is interesting is how athletes in all of these athletes, or any athletes that has appeared most likely on SNL, probably went through media training at some point, and has more time in front of a camera than your average plumber or something. So I was wondering why they aren't a little bit better than they are.
Well, how many plumbers have you seen on SNL, Jeff?
Oh my God, they had the whole plumber season
That's
the other day.
Right.
But the idea that
Mario was great on that one.
Joe the plumber, not so much.
Christopher Plummer was on there. I always think they could be a little bit better than they are, and I'm kind of surprised when they're not. When it's a professional boxer, I'm not surprised at all.
I think I have four that I think are great, and also I did leave off wrestlers. There are no wrestlers on my list. I think, as we might have discussed,
they're kind of actors.
They're live performers, so I think the pressure on them is a little bit less.
All right, so you're starting us off, Michael.
My first choice is the Peyton Manning United Way sketch from 2007.
Also on my list. First one I thought of.
It's probably just one of the best SNL sketches.
Period. Full stop. Yeah.
Open. Get open. You suck. All right, let's go. Let's go. Get back in here. Let's go.
All right, so Michael, why did you
I can't even look at you. You know what? Go sit in the portal for 20 minutes.
It initially kind of starts out really, really close to the vest, like Peyton Manning.
Noted good guy. In real life.
Yeah, one, noted good guy in real life. Two, noted kind of a-hole, as a quarterback.
Right.
Whenever something kind of a mistake happens on the field, he's always very physically upset at his receiver, or he starts chastising these kids for missing a block or not picking up a blitz or whatever.
And all the audible stuff too, the calling out
and I just love how this kind of devolves into Peyton Manning's just a bad person, and they start picking the locks on the car and the tattoo. And
well, I think it works because this is one of the frequent kind of tropes of SNL athlete sketches, right? Is to subvert whatever the public persona is that you have of that person, and then do a sketch that kind of just flips that.
Yeah.
So maybe it might be something where, and I don't know if they did this when Deion Sanders was on, but have him actually be somebody who hates flashy things and or something like that.
Yeah.
And it works with Peyton Manning because this is like I said, he is noted sort of good guy goober in real life.
Mm-hmm. Sure. He built
country boy kind of.
big contributor to the Children's Hospital in Indianapolis, and has been involved in charity just since kind of the beginning of his football career. As most famous athletes are, they're all, most of them either are kind of contracted to be involved in some sort of charity,
like the United Way.
Yeah, or actually, do it.
And of course, growing up watching football, you've seen these United Way ads for years of the, doing good in the community, da-da-da-da-da. So I think it works because it works specifically with Peyton Manning in a way it wouldn't have worked with a lot of the other athletes maybe who are on this on our lists today.
You did the comment I thought was interesting was that he is known the fake commercial does counter his public good guy persona, but also exposes that he knows that he's kind of a jerk on the field too.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
So I think people do that on SNL, especially around election years. Politicians go on to have somebody do an impersonation of them and to show how affable they are when that happens. So,
and I think not all athletes, and really not all celebrities, have a level of self-awareness and ability to poke fun at themselves.
Yeah.
And usually those are the hosts that kind of fail.
Yeah.
Saturday Night Live.
So
a host who can kind of come in and do something like this, where he's willing to make fun of his public persona, and who knew Peyton Manning had such comedic timing?
Well,
right.
I mean, he's basically made a second career out of being Peyton Manning commercial comedian.
You talked about that, Jeff, at the beginning. Like, why don't some? You'd be surprised how many of these people either, that have gone through some sort of commercial training or some sort of on camera. Like, he seems very natural at it, and it's usually built around kind of this aw shucks, good guy sort of thing.
Right.
But he's kind of slips into that on camera more naturally than, even his brother, who's been on SNL, and it's just like,
Go back to
like commercials where you show off your wristwatches.
That's good.
That's Eli Manning's. Like, okay, you can hold your hand up. Done.
Peyton Manning can do weird commercials where he's a little guy in people's refrigerators talking about Top and Nod.
I do like that people complain so much about him, like, oh, why is he on TV? He's the only one that seems to be able to do it.
Yeah.
Because he's good at it.
Yeah.
How about that?
So I guess that's both of your first. So
Yes.
Richard, what's your second?
Sticking in the quarterback mode, I have Joe Montana
Oh, fun.
with the sincere guy Stu.
Also on my list,
As also on your list.
God, this guy's a stiff.
Leslie was going to sleep in the living room, unless that's a problem for you, in which case she could sleep in my room and I could sleep on the floor.
Come on, you idiot. Help me out.
Maybe it would be better if I stayed in Dan's room because we don't want to inconvenience you.
Hey, it's fine with me if you stay in the living room. It won't bother me at all.
It's fine with me if she stays in the living room. It doesn't bother me at all.
Well, thanks a lot, Stu.
Yeah, thanks a lot, jerk.
You are so sweet.
Boy, is this guy lame.
Well, listen, Stu, I think Leslie and I are going to stay up a while and talk, so I guess we'll see you tomorrow.
Great. See you tomorrow.
Great. I'll see them tomorrow.
Listen, we'll talk quietly so as not to disturb you, okay?
Oh, you won't disturb me. I'll be in my room masturbating.
They won't disturb me. I'll be masturbating.
Good night.
So keep in mind that Joe Montana, while being an incredible quarterback in the 80s and 90s, was also one of the most bland and like milquetoast personalities probably in sports of his era. I remember Jim Rome used to call him alternately Barry Manilow because of his blandness and sort of kind of facial appearance, kind of looking like him a little bit, and also China Joe, just for being very fragile and kind of there's a reason why Tom Brady was he was Tom Brady's idol growing up. I mean, they both kind of had that same sort of, you couldn't really affix a personality trait to them other than being sort of just good at football and kind of generally sort of affable, but kind of a doofy sort of way. And they had him on, it was right before one of the Super Bowls in 92, I think it was maybe. Him and Walter Payton co-hosted, so they kind of split it, so neither of them had to do too much heavy lifting. The only skit I remember was this one skit. It's Phil Hartman and Jan Hooks basically playing a couple on a date, and they go back to his place. Yes.
This was from 1986.
86? Was it from 86? Wow.
Yeah.
I guess it makes more sense that way. So it was from 86 then.
Yeah. I just didn't know if you wanted to re-record that as.
Why do we do that?
From
Yeah,
Sure. I don't want you to seem like you're totally stupid.
Even though.
I don't, you know.
Okay, yeah.
I'm the nice guy. I'm the nice guy here, not letting you out, gonna hang out to dry when we get all of our fan mail that says like, oh, by the way, Richard,
1992, you idiot.
1992, they won the Super Bowl.
He was
Can
already
you
with
believe
the
that?
Chiefs. He was already
need to
with the
do it.
Chiefs, you moron.
Let's do an experiment where we just spout Nazi propaganda just to see if anybody messages anything.
So, okay.
So tell me about this episode.
Yeah, so basically, this was in 90. I did it again, god damn it. So 86, they had him and Walter Payton co-host an episode. I think it was right before a Super Bowl. Both the teams had been knocked out, like in the playoffs at some point.
That's really strange. Sorry to jump in, but it's strange for them to bring on someone, even though they're well known as a failure. Usually SNL is like, oh, this person won the Super Bowl, and here's Joe Flacco hosting Saturday Night Live, and you're like, come on.
This guy.
Just because he won.
Doesn't mean that they're interesting, or it doesn't mean that they're going to be a good talent. Maybe it speaks to their management, and they're just like, we've got to get the Joe Flacco brand out on SNL, and they won.
Well, I think in this, if this was 86, I believe this would have been the Giants Broncos Super Bowl, I think.
But maybe that
feels right.
Maybe both those guys just kind of transcended, their superstardom transcended.
And that was kind of my point.
Them being total losers that year.
Yeah, it was kind of my point. I think if they would have waited for there's no like superstar on the Giants, it would have been like super compelling. I mean, the Broncos had Elway, but talking about losers back in the 80s, that guy.
Boom, roasted.
Take that Elway. So the only sketch I remember, two sketches I remember from this. One was Walter Payton hosting the sports music video countdown, which segged into We Are Kickers, We Kick Ball, which possibly could have made my list. And then this one, which was the setup was Phil Hartman and Jan Hooks are a couple out on a date. They go back to his place. And the first half of it is kind of a one joke premise.
The entire thing is one joke premise,
it's a one joke premise, but then with an incredible kicker at the end.
Yeah.
So the premise is essentially you can hear their internal dialogue, and whatever they're saying is the complete opposite of what they're thinking.
Right.
So both time they're like kind of going, hey, if it's getting late, if you want to sleep on my couch, I mean, totally by yourself, I mean, that'd be fine. God, I hope she does. I so want to have sex. And she's like, well, I don't know. Oh, so I don't want to seem like a slut, but I so want to have sex. And then midway through, Joe Montana kind of comes in as Phil Hartman's roommate. And the gag is that unlike the two of them, he is so simple-minded that he has like no internal dialogue. Mm-hmm. Whatever he says is what he has like whatever he's thinking is what he says. There's like nothing in there. And therefore the two of them think he is such a complete like drip and like just boring as hell. Yeah. Until the very end where he's getting ready to go to bed and goes, well, I'll see you guys later. I'm going to go upstairs and masturbate. And you hear his internal dialogue. I'm going to go upstairs and masturbate. And then just goes upstairs. Boom, that's the end of the sketch.
I like this because it was such a very obvious one-note SNL sketch that kind of goes on a little too long. Mm-hmm. And by the time you get to the first joke and the second joke with him and the third, you're just like, okay. I don't know if you're kind of waiting for the turn of him to not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they never get there. They just keep on that kind of SNL path. And it's amazing to see an SNL sketch that you're just like, oh, they've done so many hundreds of these where they kind of keep the same thing up going over and over and over, and they I guess they took a turn like you said with the kicker, but it never quite like if they done something else would have been amazing. Like if his final thing was like
I'm gonna kill them all in their sleep or something.
That would have been like an actual twist. It was just kind of like I think
I
think they betrayed the joke.
I think that would have been. I think
2 or 3 times. Like I think that I really like this sketch just because it feels so much like an SNL sketch that I've seen so many times,
especially from the mid '80s when they kind of didn't have their footing quite right. But I would argue. Now we're arguing comedy, which I fucking hate.
It's
doing.
okay. We have a judge here who's
That's
a
true.
comedian who can tell us who is right who is Richard.
See, I almost feel like that if they would have gone with that kind of twist, like, oh, I'm going to kill them all in their sleep or something like that.
No, well, that's hacky. I wouldn't have done that.
Well, yeah, you would have. You would have. I feel like this is almost like it was such an out of left field thing to kind of just continue down that path, to find a way to continue down that path, but then have this sort of like thing you were totally not expecting, Joe freaking Montana. And that was kind of my point. It's Joe Montana. He is the blandest, most boring people in the world. So to have him come out with this like punchline that makes him seem like a total like skeevy creep.
You know what's funny is that
what was like when we're watching on, whoa, what the hell was that all about?
One of the first sketches that I remember, and I don't think this is on your list because I've seen your list, is the Reggie Jackson and early SNL. Reggie Jackson was the host.
Okay,
and he's kind of a camp counselor at a camp full of bees, or
the killer bees.
The killer bees.
Okay,
and he talks about there's a masturbation subplot in that
is there?
sketch as well. So
that's funny. And
he catches John Belushi buzzing off.
Oh, buzzing off. So that's like the how they get around it.
Yeah.
Perfect. So I do think, like you mentioned, I think in the opening about how a lot of times with athletes they try to embarrass them or set them up in some sort of like, Derek Jeter in drag as a Yankee wife talking about how horrible Derek Jeter is, stuff like that.
Yeah.
This is probably it's the first one I remember growing up where there was something like that, where an athlete was put in a really like, whoa, what the hell is just happening?
Yeah.
Except I mentioned Tom Brady. Tom Brady would never do it. I think he's hosted once. And I don't think he did anything that was remotely like controversial or anything. It was all like kind of like light, sort of like light ribbon joshing type of stuff.
Yeah. Whew. Okay, guys, we are halfway through our episode here on athletes who appeared on SNL and did awesome sketches. And before we do the thing that we always do, where we beg you to download, rate, and review past episodes of our podcast, I'm going to do the thing where we ask you to use Audible. Why? Because you're going to get a free audiobook. Audible is offering a free audiobook download with a free 30-day trial to give you the opportunity to check out their service. Here's a cool thing. If you wanted to learn more about sketches from SNL, read or listen to 39 Years of Short-Term Memory Loss, The Early Days of SNL from Someone Who Was There, written and narrated by Tom Davis of Franken and Davis. So that book is available on Audible, and there's 180,000 other titles. Audible has it all. To download your free audiobook today, go to audibletrial.com/Rushmore. Again, I'll say it again, grab your pen, audibletrial.com/Rushmore for your free audiobook. And we're back, but before we jump back into our third and fourth choices, I want to ask you to download, rate, and review past episodes to get on the Mount Rushmore Facebook page or Twitter handle or Instagram and get in the dialogue. Let us know shows that you'd like to see, topics you'd like to hear discussed. We are back, and it's Michael coming in with his third choice.
My third choice was from 1996, and it was a Weekend Update segment with Kerri Strug. Famous injured gymnastics, USA gymnastics
hero,
who appears next to
Chris Kattan, right? If it's the one I'm thinking of,
yeah, next to Chris Kattan, who's playing her brother Kippy Strug, and the two of them are sitting there being welcomed by like Norm Macdonald, and he's asking them questions.
Hey, welcome,
Kerri Strug, like he's right-handed and all of this. And they're both dressed exactly the same way in like the big USA kind of starter jacket looking thing, like a cool down jacket. And Chris Kattan has like her same kind of real short haircut, and they're both, he starts speaking in like her high-pitched voice because she's like 15 years old, 16. She's just a kid,
and probably has had her growth stunted by like whatever hormones they gave gymnasts back in the 90s.
What is
the Komanichi pill?
What is in that chalk? It's all over their hands, it's all over their nose.
You don't want to know.
But they're talking about Norm Macdonald's kind of asking them about like, Kerri, what happened, when you went up there and you sprained your ankle?
What was the thing when you sprained your ankle?
And she's like, well, I just went up there and I gave a little prayer, and then he jumps in. He's like, oh, you gave a little prayer. It's really like he's doing an impersonation of her, a kind of a weird, like it's her but it's not. It's like a male version, and she's. Like all gymnasts do, she keeps her composure through the entire thing until the end when, someone dressed up as Bella Caroli comes in and, lifts her up and takes her away. It's just one of those,
You could do it. Kerri, you could do it.
I love seeing an athlete parodied in front of them.
Yeah.
Where, they can look at themselves in the mirror and just see how, like you said, she was a hero at the time.
Yeah.
And she's genuinely injured and still went out and performed again and then, basically limped off. And
There's something humanizing when these people who I still think of the Olympians as almost Greek gods, as these people who've shown themselves to be above mere mortals through their athletic prowess, and to see an SNL actor make fun of them brings them down to everyman status, which is kind of fun.
And I don't think she was the host of the show. They just kind of brought her in. Like
it must have been like right after the Olympics, right?
Yeah, they just had like a bit, and it was just so well done.
Which is the type of thing SNL can do with athletes. You mentioned sort of whoever the hottest or whoever just won something. They don't necessarily need to build a whole episode around that person as the host. A lot of times they can use often Weekend Update as sort of a platform to do something with whoever won some championship. Or I know when the Cubs won the World Series last year, they had them come on to fly the W, and they had Bill Murray in there to sing a song, and it was all kind of like drunken and weird.
Or if John Goodman is out of rehab or needs a $700 that week or something.
They do the sports fans?
Yeah, he seems like he flops in there.
What's interesting, before we move on, you mentioned Kerri Strug, and you think about boy, hosting SNL has got to be like this peak thing for an athlete. And they must only get like the most famous athletes of all time. Then you look at the list of athletes who've hosted SNL, and it's a real smorgasbord of up and down, for every Reggie Jackson you've got a Johnny Mosley, the snowboarder.
Yeah.
Famous guy for about 20 minutes.
Or
Andy Roddick, the tennis player, something like that.
Who is the other snowboarder that is more famous?
Shaun White.
Yeah, whose name I can't remember.
Yeah. Never hosted.
Okay.
So weird.
I do wonder.
I bet I can write every Shaun White SNL sketch.
It's involved him
in
at
10 minutes.
Yeah.
Either he's high or he's
got red. He's the Wendy's guy. He's the brother of the Wendy's girl.
Maybe there's like a carrot top
sort
of
thing,
situation going on.
We Children of the Corn.
That's 4. That's 4. Let's get a digital short in there. We got Weekend Update.
Okay, let's
2 musical numbers, and we're home.
Okay, guys. Yeah. Does Lorne Michaels really think we're going to get the extreme sports audience to tune into SNL? This is how we stay relevant.
Well, guys, let's just stay up through Wednesday night on cocaine. We'll write this. We'll write the whole thing.
That powder
and go from there.
Richard, your third is what?
All right, my third one is, while talking about there had been some athletes who are maybe not as lasting in their fame who had hosted, this one does not fall into that. This is Michael Jordan. When he was on with Stuart Smalley. How did you guys feel about the Stuart Smalley sketches when they were a thing?
I thought they were pretty hilarious.
Right, we all
Or I thought it was weird that Al Franken had come back.
Yeah,
because he was with
the original guys,
interns in the initial SNL, and then got on.
Well, they were these junior writers who got hired. Yeah.
I always thought they were funny. I don't think I was old enough to quite understand all of the humor around it at the time,
or like the 12-step program type thing.
Yeah, like with Al-Anon and everything. And then I was actually looking at this episode, or at this this sketch, and just kind of reading about Stuart Smalley, or that character was kind of built on his past, where he was in Alcoholics. He was in Al-Anon for his wife.
His wife, right.
So he obviously took all of this in as a writer and a comedian, which is this is totally someone that I have to parody.
He talks about this a lot in the audiobook for his book that came out, the Al Franken Giant of the Senate.
Oh, is it good?
Well, if you want to listen to it, you can check it out at audible.com. Get a free trial, by the way. Just go to audible.com/Rushmore.
Trial.
Audibletrial.com.
God damn it, I screwed up my own read. No, so the whole premise, and by the way, I bring that up because I do remember really liking the Daily Affirmations sketches, but I think collectively, we all remember it as Stuart saves his family.
Yeah, which is a rotten.
And now has become a bad punchline.
Yeah.
And I don't even know if the movie's any good or not. I haven't seen it, so who the hell knows? But I think we remember those sketches as being kind of, it's clouded by that memory.
Yeah.
So they have Michael Jordan come on, and the whole thing is basically about Stuart Smalley trying to get him to admit that sometimes he lays in bed at night and thinks that maybe I'm not going to put the ball in the basket.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to get any points. And obviously it's Michael Jordan, who we all know kind of in real life has probably got an ego the size of Illinois.
Yeah, the most confident person in America.
Right. So he's going, no, I don't really have that at all. But they eventually get him to say, well, sometimes he does get nervous before big games. Then he has to go through the whole, like, looking at himself in the mirror.
Yeah.
And this, first off, this is where we kind of learned Michael Jordan had kind of more of a personality than just dunking a basketball or being on Nike commercials where he dunks a basketball or hanging out with Mars Blackman and dunking basketballs.
This must have also been kind of pre-championship Jordan, right?
No, I was 91, so he'd already, like, started, I think it was right before his...
It was before
Maybe
his tragedy.
right, maybe after his first championship.
Okay.
It was like right in that time frame. I think maybe that's why they had him on, because he'd finally won his first championship.
Makes sense.
But it's really he is one of the ones you don't think of as being like a great comedian, but at the same time it worked. He had several good sketches on this. He had a super fans that we talked about that he came on as Michael Jordan and basically spent their whole time wanting to talk to him about Mike Ditka.
Yeah, yeah.
And most importantly, we probably wouldn't have got Space Jam if it wasn't for this.
Oh,
so
interesting point.
There you go. Mm-hmm. And they did do a follow-up a couple of years later with Charles Barkley, where he came on and tried to say that he didn't care about not having won a championship.
Yeah.
And then they brought Muggsy Bogues in to get him to finally admit that it was tearing him up inside. So that's if you want to know the difference between Jordan and Barkley, there you go.
I would say those sketches also bring to light what SNL was missing sorely, and that was the African American presence on that show.
Wait, Michael Jordan's black?
Oh, Jesus. And one thing I think was so funny about those sketches was the extreme whiteness of the Stuart Smalley character.
Right, probably the whitest person in America. Yeah.
In contrast with this, perhaps the most egregious amount of confidence in and a towering athletic figure.
Who also, Stuart Smalley clearly knows nothing about sports.
Yeah.
Which also is part of the fun.
Believe me, I know what it's like. Laying there awake, all those tapes rolling. I'm a fraud. Tomorrow I'm going to be exposed for what I am, a big imposter. I just want to curl up and lay in bed all day and eat Fig Newtons.
Well, something like that.
Right. Well, Michael, those negative thoughts are your critical inner voice saying those things to you, and I want to replace those negative thoughts with something positive, a daily affirmation.
Affirmation?
Yes. Now look in the mirror. Come on. Don't look at me, only you can help you. That's it. Say, hello, Michael.
Hello, Michael.
I don't have to be a great basketball player.
I don't have to be a great basketball player.
I don't have to dribble the ball fast or throw the ball into the basket.
I don't have to dribble the ball fast or throw the ball in the basket.
Because all I have to do is be the best Michael I can be.
All I have to do is be the best Michael I can be.
Because I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and doggone it, people like me.
Because I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and doggone it, people like me.
Now don't you feel better?
Well, I never really felt bad.
Michael.
No, it's true. Stuart, I guess pretty much of the time I'm a very happy person. I mean, I'm a blessed person. God gave me the talent to play basketball, and I have been able to spread some of that talent and some of that good feeling towards everybody and inspire other people and help people achieve their dreams.
I am just a fool. I don't know what I'm doing. They're gonna cancel the show. I'm gonna die homeless and penniless. I'm 20 pounds overweight, and no one will ever love me.
Stuart, that's just not true. I think what you're saying in your show can be very helpful to people.
You think so?
Yes, definitely. I just don't think it helps beating yourself up that way.
You're right, it's just thinking.
And after all, this show is your dream. It's a good dream. And you deserve to have dreams come true. Feel better? Would you like a hug?
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Stuart.
You know what? I think this is the best show I've ever done. And you know what? I deserve it. Because I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and doggone it, people like me.
Yeah, I do like that this Stuart Smalley character is like, I don't know if he's an actual therapist. I don't think, no, he's not a licensed therapist.
No, they talk about how he's a caring and giving and nurturing person who has been through many programs.
But like, I still think that's what people who are so like hesitant to go to therapy think that therapists are like. That they think that they're all kind of like these kind of measly, namby-pamby kind of characters.
Touchy-feely kind of guys,
Like, no, they're real doctors.
Michael, you're fourth.
My last one is titled Big Bernard Gets a Spanking, starring famous athlete Shaquille Shaq O'Neal.
Oh, you mean one of the most famous non-actors turned actors?
Most famous non-actors turned actors.
Bernard, get your ass over here. Sorry I'm late, Dad. Sit your ass down. What time was you supposed to be home? Midnight, Dad. Okay, now what time is it now?
2 o'clock, Dad.
Okay, using the art of subtraction, how late exactly are you?
2 hours, Dad?
Close enough. Listen, son, I told you the next time you were late, I was gonna take you over my knee. Now lay your ass on my lap.
You can't spank me, Dad. I'm too big.
Look, I ain't afraid of you, Bernard. You think I'm wussy?
No.
Now lay your ass on my lap.
It's a very simple sketch.
I got to spank me some
home,
butt.
To Tracy Morgan, his father, who's sitting on the couch.
Okay, you've got me already.
Tracy, he came home late, and Tracy Morgan's sitting on the couch, and he starts berating him. And the size difference between these two is, Tracy Jordan's probably 5'6" or 5'8" or something, and then Shaq's just twice his size. And he starts yelling at him and basically saying that I'm gonna have to teach you a lesson, and starts to give Shaq a spanking. And Shaq lays over him and dwarfs him and gobbles up the couch is probably a 6-foot couch, and he's clearly leans over both edges of the couch, and he's just like this gigantic man getting spanked by Tracy Morgan, and he's like, this is the last time I'm gonna have to, and you're gonna feel it. And all the time, Shaq's just smiling and can't feel a thing because of his size. And at the end, he kind of sits in his lap and cuddles him until he falls asleep. But I like when athletes can do real physical humor. I think they can understand it. Not that they're stupid, but I think it plays into their character of it's like the Peyton Manning thing. He can throw a football and peg a kid.
Right.
He knows how to do all the football stuff.
Fallon does this. I feel like Ellen DeGeneres does this. They think, what would America love to do with this person? And how would America love to see this person? And break it down to the most rudimentary way. And in some cases, the tallest athlete, if you could see him getting bent over and spanked treated like a little kid.
This sort of segs into my last pick a little bit. So
good.
So my last pick is, I think, it features first off a podcast favorite, Paul Simon.
Not an athlete. Hey guys, Jeff, you've got to get it. You can't allow this. He's not an athlete.
It does also feature an athlete.
No. Oh,
so he is.
I mean,
just joshing.
Hey,
so we are Simon Cast, your Paul Simon podcast of record, as we previously determined.
Hearts and bones, everybody.
Hearts and asthma. So this was actually the second ever episode of Saturday Night Live, which was hosted by Paul Simon, and he also performed because he's best friends with Lorne Michaels from God knows how they're best friends. But
I guess it's 2 for 1.
Yeah,
we need you to come host. Okay, and play music.
Play some songs.
They didn't have a lot of budget back then, so they only had to pay scale once, I guess.
Yeah.
So, and this was, again, second episode, so they kind of hadn't figured out the formula yet. So there's, if you watch this first especially half the first season, there's a lot of really long pre-taped bits, and they haven't quite got. There's the musical acts get a lot more time. It's different, and they have this in the middle of the Weekend Update. There's about a 5 or 6-minute sketch that is basically Paul Simon has been challenged to a one-on-one game of basketball by Connie Hawkins, who was a playground legend in New York, had been caught up in a college betting point shaving scandal that he had nothing to do with, but basically was blackballed from the NBA for about a decade. Then, starting like 70, he came back and was one of the better players in the league after that. And was like 6'8". He was almost like he would have been a prototypical type player today. Very high-flying guy who could slash and get to the basket, even though he was big and 6'8" and could rebound and play defense. Probably one of the highest jumpers ever to play the game. So you contrast that with little 5'5" Paul Simon. And the whole premise of the sketch is that Connie Hawkins has challenged Paul Simon to play this basketball game. Paul Simon has accepted.
That's my favorite part about it. It's that he challenged the smallest person, the smallest celebrity you can find.
And this is and they have Marv Albert in there to kind of do the commentary on it, leading up to it. And the one sort of Paul Simon's more the star of the skit, but Connie Hawkins has, I think, maybe one of the best lines. They bring him over to ask why did he challenge Paul Simon. He's like, well, I heard Paul Simon's one of the, I asked around who the best players are on the playground now, and I think Paul Simon is one of the best. And I heard he's got a lot of chutzpah.
Yeah.
Just to hear him, he's talking about him having a lot of chutzpah.
Yeah.
It's just sort of, again, not an athlete that you would think of being like having comedic timing necessarily.
Yeah.
Probably never done anything
Using
like this
Yiddish.
before in his
Yeah.
life.
Yeah.
Suddenly he's like using Yiddish to talk about this guy.
Mm-hmm.
They ask him if he thinks there's a chance Paul Simon could get hurt. He just kind of looks and goes,
First of all,
yeah.
Yeah.
And so the majority of the sketch is based on it is based on that same sort of comedic dynamic of incredibly tall Connie Hawkins and a little short Paul Simon, with the twist being that Paul Simon actually beats him in the basketball game. And it kind of works because Paul Simon looks like he can play basketball probably a little bit, and he's probably a good athlete. So he's doing all these like little guy stuff, right? Like little baby hook shots and like stealing
a lot of layups,
practically going through his Connie Hawkins' legs to get a basketball and stuff like that. So it lets Connie Hawkins kind of do a lot of this physical kind of stuff. The last thing they do is Paul Simon kind of gets a ball and then stops and lets Connie Hawkins jump completely over him so he can get the winning layup. Mm-hmm. And you can see while this is going on, Connie Hawkins just has this biggest grin on his face. And partially, I like the sketch because it's a really funny sketch. They do like sort of the post-game interview with Paul Simon afterward, and he kind of turns into a little bit of the conceited sort of post-game athlete who went, well, I tell you what, man, all I know is when I got my outside game's on. It's on. So, and on our old team, the Ninjas, we used to do, kickball team, Michael and I, we used to do occasional post-game press conferences.
Yeah.
And that basically was my persona when I would do them, would be kind of the hero who was super conceited but didn't quite understand that.
Yeah.
And so, A, it's a funny sketch, but B, you can tell Connie Hawkins is just having an absolute blast doing this thing. Mm-hmm. And I can pretty much guarantee you at no point in his strange, bizarre, star-crossed career he thought he would be on a network TV comedy show playing a one-on-one basketball game with a 5'5" Jewish singer. And he just looks like
losing.
And losing. And that's, that's something that, I'm sure a lot of athletes would have turned that down because they would have said, well, I'm not going to lose to...
Yeah.
He went along with it. You can just tell he's having a great time. It just makes me laugh to hear.
My favorite bit about the sketch was Paul Simon wearing a decimal 02.
Yeah.
And Marv Albert, why are you wearing that number?
Like,
well,
my number from high school. And that's
just always been my number. I don't know why.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, this was a fun topic, and it's only struck me after you brought up this topic that how many of those sketches we've had over the 30-plus years of SNL and how cool they are to see. So...
I like that you said 30-plus. That show has been on for forever.
Is it
it's
40?
Like 40 something.
Yeah, they did their 40th anniversary like 2-3 years ago.
Are you serious?
Mm-hmm.
Wow, my gosh. So.
It's just funny how like everything feels like it was like 30 years ago.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh yeah, Star Wars, 30 years ago. It's like, that movie's 40 years old too. And you're like, oh
dear.
gosh,
yeah,
how old am I?
Well, yeah, like 76 or crazy. Okay, yeah. So here's the scoring. Now I'm just gonna start with what I think is unique because you guys had two crossovers. I thought the Bernard Gets a Spanking was really fun and deserved points the way you described it to me. I really liked that Connie Hawkins one-on-one basketball. That's really great. I also really thought the Daily Affirmation sketch with Stuart Smalley and Michael Jordan was one that really stood out in my memory. So that's one because the great minds think alike for Richard. And then I'm also going to take the Kerri Strug and Kippy Strug from Michael Winfield. So I guess we're 2-2.
Well, when you pull out Chris Kattan,
yeah,
you can't lose.
Yeah, you've got a Kattan Vantage. Oh God. Okay. This has been the Mount Rushmore podcast. I'm Jeff.
I'm Richard.
I'm Michael.